Hi, it's Matt here from Murphy Solution. When a crisis hits an organisation, some of the first questions are usually, what do we do and who does it? And generally people know what they need to do, but it's often unclear how much autonomy they have to make decisions where they are. What needs to be elevated, agreed and coordinated higher up. Many organisations over-orient themselves as if there is only one way of responding. Either everything is pulled into the centre with senior leaders retaining tight control over the response, approving decisions, allocating resources and coordinating messages, known as a centralised approach. Or responsibility is pushed out to locally situated leaders or teams who are closer to the problem and can act quickly, known as a decentralised approach. Organisations usually default to one particular approach, and that might be because of the predominant risks in their sector, the organisational vulnerabilities, or just how the company naturally organises itself for business as usual. But a crisis isn't business as usual. Let's explore these approaches a bit more. A centralised approach means strategy, priorities, messaging, escalation and resource allocation are decided upon from a central point in the organisation, usually a top-level leadership or crisis team. Local teams may still act, but within an agreed set of boundaries, outside of which approval or alignment is usually needed. A centrally coordinated approach can be extremely valuable and is strongest when a crisis has enterprise-wide consequences. It helps create a single version of the truth and align functions across the organisation while reducing contradictory decisions and allowing senior leaders to see the wider consequences and trade-offs presented by different response options before coordinated action is taken. A cyber incident, for example, may start as a technical issue, but very quickly becomes a customer, legal, regulatory, reputational, and a leadership issue. In that kind of situation, the organisation likely benefits from central coordination. It needs a consistent view of what has happened, what's being done, what can be said about it, and what risks need to be escalated. And the same can apply to a serious safety incident, a regulatory investigation, or any event where local decisions could create wider exposure for the organisation. Central coordination gives structure, it gives consistency, it helps stop different parts of the organisation from pulling in different directions, but there are also disadvantages. If everything has to go upwards through a chain and decisions come downwards through some kind of approvals process, it creates a bottleneck and the organisation's response can be slowed. Local teams may wait for permission when they should be acting. Technical experts may be overruled by senior leaders who are too far removed from the operational detail. Strategic level crisis teams can become overloaded with tactical decisions while the people closest to the problem are expected to hold the line. A decentralised approach means local or functional teams close to where the problem is are supported and empowered to act using judgment and expertise. This works best when people understand the organisation's intent, risk tolerances, and there are high levels of preparedness, which takes effort. Sometimes the perception of being seen to be doing something matters almost as much as actually doing something. That's why decentralised execution is strongest in situations that are fast-moving, localised, technical or operational. Local, regional or country teams often understand the on-the-ground reality better than a central crisis or leadership team because they know the context, the people and the processes. Decentralisation also encourages initiative and adaptability, particularly when there's a need to act quickly before the full picture is clear. Actions like system isolation, containment, switching to backup processes or workarounds won't be effective if teams have to wait for a committee to agree each step. The benefit of a decentralised approach is that it generates momentum in the early stages, particularly if it leverages expertise, high levels of training and preparedness, as it does for the emergency services as part of incident command thinking. It also allows the organisation to respond to what is actually happening rather than what the centre assumes is happening. But decentralisation also has significant drawbacks. It only works when people understand the boundaries and they have a clear intent, guiding principles or thresholds. Without these, a response can become, or at least appear, fragmented and inconsistent. Different teams may interpret the situation in their own way and make different decisions. Messages may conflict with each other. Information reporting may be unclear or unhelpful. Local fixes may create wider organisational issues, consume resources inefficiently, or even exacerbate the situation. Critical issues may be overlooked or not escalated, and local teams may quickly be overwhelmed by both the problem and the consequences. And that's why boundaries are important. They need to know what they can decide for themselves, what must be escalated, and what the organization's priorities are, and the level of risk they are allowed to accept. If a decentralized approach does not include a well-defined intent, priorities, and boundaries, this sense of empowerment it seeks to create is replaced by the need to improvise. That's why it can be harmful if an organization defaults to or only has one recognized way of responding. If the default mode is to centralize, it can become slow, permission-based, and inflexible. Everything depends on the center and the competencies of the people there. The organization may have control, but it loses momentum in how it responds. If the organization only knows how to decentralize, it may move quickly but can lose coherence. Different parts of the response contradict each other. Senior leaders may discover too late that local decisions have created more strategic consequences. The best level to manage a crisis at is often the lowest level that has the competence, authority, and perspective to act safely, with higher levels stepping in when the consequences exceed local control. For example, a local operational incident or disruption may need local action with light central oversight. A cyber attack may need technical teams acting quickly, while senior leaders coordinate disclosure, communications, legal advice, and business impact. A reputational crisis may need tight central messaging, while local managers are given clear guidance and lines to use with staff, customers, or partners. A multi-site incident may need local autonomy at each affected location, but central coordination for resources, prioritization, and stakeholder communication. An organization's approach should best match the nature and consequences of the crisis based on these examples. Centralization and decentralization can be thought of as two ends of a spectrum. If an organization only has one way of responding, it risks forcing the situation to fit its structure rather than shaping its structure to suit the situation. High reliability organizations perform not just because they're able to find the balance between these two ends of the spectrum when the pressure is on, but because they commit and prepare to be able to do so in advance. The value of crisis management as a strategic capability lies in harnessing the advantages of both a centralized and decentralized approach and mitigating the disadvantages. That means knowing when to coordinate, when to empower, when to escalate, and also when to get out of the way. That's all for now. See you next time.